I thought it might be fun to start a little series where I speak about the books that I've been reading recently. I'll still be doing though the videos on like spooky things and all that. And I have a video that I made with Carol Baskin from Tiger King that I still need to upload, which I'll upload next after this one. But I just thought it might be good to talk about some books that I'm reading recently, as obviously I'm a grown man, and as a grown man, it's nice to speak about adult things as well that are not quite as silly, although I do like to be silly. And I thought it might be good to start it off by speaking about a book that I read years ago, because this book led me to then binge reading God knows how many books over the last few years. And that book, as you can tell by the title, is 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. And I think, before I speak about the book, it's quite important to speak about the author, who is seen as like a very, very, very controversial figure, which, for the most part, is really quite unfair. So I first heard of Jordan Peterson as my friends were constantly posting on Facebook about how he's horrible, he's transphobic, he's misogynistic, and all these different things. And they were comparing him to people like Tim Pool and loads of like extreme right-wing figures like Dave Shapiro and people like that, you know. And I just thought, wow, this guy must be absolutely horrible, and the things they were saying were so extremely nasty that I had to give him a Google and find out who he is and what these transphobic things are that he's been saying. And it just so happens that all of this kind of scandal came from a YouTube series that he was making in 2016, where he was speaking about how the Canadian government were trying to make it law that you had to call trans people by their preferred pronouns, basically. And he said, and he made it very, very clear, that if anybody wants to be called by other pronouns, he's more than happy to do that. He thinks that anybody should, it's the least that people should do. It's basic human decency. But the only problem he has isn't with pronouns, it's with a freedom of speech thing here. Because if the government can make laws that basically say what you can and can't say, then that's like a very, very slippery slope. And so he made it very, very clear that that's what it was. And he had no problem with trans people. So it blew my mind. Why are all my friends calling him transphobic? And really laying into him. And for years they never stopped. They were celebrating when his wife was really sick in hospital. They were celebrating when he was sick and in hospital, as they just portrayed him as this villain. And to me, it was wild. As I've watched God knows how many hours of his YouTube videos. I must have worked my way through almost all of them now, and read both of his books now. And there's nothing transphobic there at all. Not once. In fact, I've watched multiple interviews as well that he's done on Channel 4 and multiple different stations and stuff, where when asked, would you call people by their pronouns, he always says yes, of course he would. So to me, it just seems really, really wild that people really, really want to attack him. People all over the world, including the media. And to me, it was fascinating, as if you've done literally nothing wrong, and the whole world, or half the world, turns against you and is trying to ruin your career, you need some incredible mental toughness to be able to handle all that pressure. And to me, it was fascinating to watch and follow somebody with that much pressure on their shoulders, being attacked by half the world when they haven't actually done anything wrong. It's been quite fascinating to watch. Anyway, we'll speak more about the author afterwards, but firstly, let's jump into the book. So, 12 Rules for Life was written in 2018, and honestly, I think it's an amazing book. So basically, 12 Rules for Life, it's an incredibly, incredibly popular book, and it's basically how better to live your life. And it's very simple, basic rules. And although it's very simple, basic rules, things like stand up straight with your shoulders back, treat yourself like someone you're responsible for helping, you know, make friends with people who want the best for you, and so on. It's a lot of things here that are common sense. Tell the truth, you know. Assume that the person you're listening to might know something you don't. It's all basic common sense. And this is a very important one, be precise in your speech, which Jordan Peterson always is, which I think he has one of the main reasons why he has quite a huge fan base, as he tells the truth. And he is very, very precise with his speech, which makes it very difficult for interviewers to get one over on him, which they're always trying to do, as they're always painting him as the villain, because he tells the truth and he's very precise. And if you haven't actually done anything wrong, then the interviewers generally come off looking quite silly. So yeah, so why is this book good? Okay, what's so good about this book? Well, I guess what it is this book, it's largely things that people's parents should be teaching them, or schools should be teaching them when they're teenagers, in order to learn how to succeed. And obviously there's the basic things like sticking up for yourself, and also the ability to focus. Really focus. I mean, one of the main things that he likes to point out is to focus on one thing and one thing only for quite a large amount of time and see what happens. And basically, your life will then improve like drastically. You'll then become more valuable as a person. Your time will become more valuable as well. You'll be a more high value man because you have more skills and so on. And basically, yes, I wish that's something I learned when I was much, much younger, is basically, like, we all have or most of us have, people that are healthy, have the ability to basically, like, do pretty much anything if they put in the hours. It's like photography and videography, for example. I have friends who did this before I did, and when I asked them my advice for taking it up, they were like, no, you shouldn't do it. It takes way too long to learn, like it's very difficult. I'm from a very creative, artistic family, we're artists, we're great at this stuff. And then I was like, well, to hell, I'm gonna do it anyway. And it's all to do with how much time that you put in and how much focus. And that's basically what he's saying is, put the time in, focus. He's being encouraging. He's basically teaching people how to better themselves. It's not necessarily aimed at men, although most of the people that watch his lectures on YouTube are male, and most of his audience is male as well. But presumably because most of the viewership on YouTube is men, and he himself is a man, so it kind of makes sense, kind of thing. And but essentially, what he's doing here is he's taking men that are unsure of what they need to do, that haven't had quite the right guidance that they might need, giving them that guidance, and then turning them into more high-value men, which in return, basically, benefits them, benefits their partners, benefits their families, their kids, their friends, benefits society as a whole. And again, I keep saying men because everybody always says that basically he's speaking to men, but he's not. It's just most of the people that do basically watch his videos or read his books are men. But it's basically self-improvement for everybody. And so why would people, years and years still, pretend that he's this extreme right-wing conservative figure when he's clearly not? He does way more good than he does damage. In fact, it took years before I even saw him say anything that I did consider to be damaging. And which to me is insanely impressive. When you have half the world who are basically the extreme left and they're turning everybody else who's left-wing against you, pushing at you for years, and it takes years, 5 years before you actually do start to say things that are a bit off. Like, he's got bad COVID takes now. He has said a few things about trans rights and stuff recently, which I completely disagree with. And but I'm an adult, so I can disagree without having to be extremely hateful and stuff. I would still recommend the book because it's inevitable he was going to snap. He was innocent, and then basically the extreme left pretended he was the villain, this huge villain, and then now he's kind of snapped a little bit and is being a little bit off lately. So it's almost like they're creating this super powerful villain themselves, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But still, this book, amazing. So basically, it's basically guidance for people to be more successful, live happier lives, have have happier family lives, and generally become more high value as a person through hard work and focus, and generally just some good old-fashioned good advice. So yeah, I would check it out. So what happened after I read this book? Well, in all honesty, I did basically get hugely inspired to work harder and focus more on the things that I was already doing. And as a result, by putting in more time, I was already getting good over time, but slowly, as I've been doing these things for years. But by putting in more time and more focus, I did see a huge leap in my work, and people were commenting on the fact that there was a huge leap in my work, and it was basically being single-minded and just kind of having my focus in the right place. And as a result, by having the focus dialed in and basically choosing to make sacrifices, which is one of the main things that he speaks about, this has had a hugely positive effect, which is something that I need to remember, which is quite interesting because it is something that I have remembered though. It's something that stuck with me, which is you have to choose your sacrifices. You know, you can't be out partying all the time if you want to develop your skills, you know, like one or the other. So incredibly useful, and it's just a shame that some people don't want to see people improve themselves. But yeah, I find it really interesting that basically his detractors are always speaking about how his following is male, like it's a bad thing that he's trying to help men. He's a clinical psychologist. He's highly qualified. People are bettering themselves from his work. It's something that should be celebrated, and it's just a shame that he's starting to crack a little bit based upon basically years and years of extreme bullying, more extreme than anybody I can ever think of in history has ever had to put up with. And yeah, so I guess it says a lot about the character of the person. If you can go that long without cracking years, like 5 years, then that says quite a bit. Hopefully that wasn't too boring for you. I think what I'm going to do is, for other books, I'm probably going to focus on psychology and photography books as well, because that will be ace fun, because then I can like incorporate doing photography at the same time. Plan. Anyway, bye.